Hidden in Portmagee and standing watch over Valentia Harbour is a hybrid site of Reencaheragh Castle and fort. Initially, the fort consisted of a wall which ran for around 35 metres along the narrowest part of the promontory. Somewhat dilapidated and overgrown, in places the wall reaches 3 metres in height. Interestingly, it's not a dry stone wall. Mortar was used when building it, and possibly afterwards. There is a gateway in the wall, which may have had an arched roof, but this has long collapsed. Inside the wall, the land stretches for another 190 metres, rising considerably before reaching cliffs. On the northeast side is a little beach, where a small boat could easily land, and which was undoubtedly accessible from the fort. What makes this site special is that a small tower house, a gatehouse really, was also built in the wall, though at a later date. As no excavations have been done on the site, it is impossible to date. However, we do know that it continued in use until the early 17th century. The gatehouse is simple. It has 2 stories, reaching a maximum height of 5 metres. Dominating the ground floor is the gate to the castle itself, which is over 2 metres high. On one side of the gate can be seen 3 sockets for drawbars, basically square holes. After the gate is a lobby roofed by a pair of large slabs. On either side of the lobby are 2 chambers, both of which have windows in the external wall. The chamber on the west is slightly smaller because of the staircase to the upper story. It is interesting to note a drawbar socket near the entrance to the staircase, meaning that access to the top could be restricted. Although the stairway is well preserved, most of the upper story is in ruins. In fact, only the west wall is fully preserved. 14 metres south of the gatehouse can be seen the rectangular foundations of a building. This measured 12 metres by 7 metres externally, while the walls were almost a metre thick. Obviously, it was a substantial building at one stage. While we do not know much about the history of the castle or fort, we know who it was owned by at the end of the 16th century. In 1597 to 98, Everagh, or Desmond as it was then called, was part of the lordship of MacCarthy Moor. Following the death of Donald MacCarthy Moor in 1596, the English carried out a detailed survey of Everagh. In this, Reencaheragh appears. Although MacCarthy Moor claimed overlordship over all of Everagh, it was actually divided into various lordships, held by various septs of MacCarthys, O'Sullivans and O'Donoghus. Reencaheragh was held by a minor O'Sullivan sept called Clan Crehan, MacCrehan or MacCrohan in English. Amongst other possessions, they held the fishing rights of Beal Inse, from which the name Valentia comes, but which really means the eastern entrance to Valentia Harbour. Their lands included Reencaheragh, what is now Portmagee, Letter, where they had another castle which no longer exists, and Reenard. Due to its access to the sea, Reencaheragh was probably built to police the MacCrohan fishing rights, as at the end of the 16th century, large numbers of Spanish and French boats were fishing herring off the southwest coast of Ireland. Controlling access to Valentia must have been a useful source of income for the MacCrohan lords. It was also of strategic importance, since when Everagh was surveyed by the English in the 1590s, a single map was drafted of Valentia, on which can be seen Reencaheragh and the haven of Beal Inse. Some years later, in the early 1650s, Cromwell constructed 2 forts to guard the entrances to Valentia Harbour. It's worth mentioning here, and this is something I intend to return to in another video, that the Gaelic world was not something archaic, something backward, something doomed to defeat. Rather, it was a dynamic culture, capable of changing and adapting to circumstances, as can be seen most clearly in the 9 Years' War, when Hugh O'Neill's Gaelic Confederacy came very close to winning. However, O'Neill and his supporters were defeated, and in the 17th century the Gaelic world changed dramatically. Much land was confiscated, the large Munster lordships of MacCarthy Moor and O'Sullivan Moor were gradually broken up. Some of the MacCrohan O'Sullivans went to Spain. Large amounts of land were mortgaged or sold to newcomers. Then came the 1641 uprising, and the Confederate and Cromwellian wars of the 1640s and 1650s. In this maelstrom, Reencaheragh was abandoned, and the MacCrohan O'Sullivans disappeared. The gatehouse still stands, ignored by the tourists and forgotten in the popular histories. However, it still has much to tell us. In fact, this ruined structure can shine an interesting light into a forgotten past.